What's up, everybody? Welcome to Philly with Jon Marks, presented by Bet Parks and Central City Toyota. Happy New Year to all the listeners and viewers out there. Philly with Jon Marks. What's the proper etiquette for Happy New Year? This is the first show that we've done in the new year here on January 2nd, so obviously we're going to say it. But when you're greeting people and you're talking to people, what is it like the first time you see them within a reasonable amount of time? So in the first week, if you see somebody for the first time, hey, Happy New Year, right? Like I didn't say it to Tyler this morning, but Happy New Year, Tyler. Happy New Year to everybody out there.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. I think it's 2 weeks.
Is it 2 weeks?
I'll give you 2 weeks.
Okay.
Because you may, like you said, you may not see everybody right away. So I'll give you 2 weeks.
January 10th, if I saw somebody that I hadn't seen since last year. Yeah, I think that's fair. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody out there. As hope you had a safe and a fun New Year. And like, listen, this is the holiday season's officially over. So when you work in media, in particular in radio, as I did for many years, you have the ratings period in radio, which is the holiday book, which I think this year was December 10th. So they don't. From December 10th, pretty much until today, ratings don't matter because so many people are off and so many people's listening habits and schedules are different. So it's like you can pretty much take off, or like, you don't have the same urgency as you may when it's during a regular ratings period. But that all ends, so we don't have to worry about that right now. We're always trying to put out good content. But the holidays are behind us, and now we actually have the end of the regular season here in the NFL. And then we have the playoffs. And yesterday, Nick Sirianni, and let me say this: I've been critical of Nick Sirianni when I feel like that he has deserved it, like when he brought his children up to answer for what he did after a game, and you had that whole thing, and he was yelling at the fans and whatever else. Bottom line is Nick Sirianni has done a great job this year. The Eagles are in position to go back to a Super Bowl, and the position that he was put in here, it was fairly obvious what they were going to do. It was clearly obvious what they should do. It was fairly obvious what they were going to do. But it's not just that. It's how you handle the situation, both publicly with the media, but more importantly, behind the scenes with your players, right? Like, you have to realize that Saquon Barkley probably wanted to go for the record, and there may have been players on the team that wanted to go for the record. So how do you handle it? Well, you talk to everybody. You talk to the players. You talk to Saquon Barkley. You have conversations. You talk to Howie Roseman. You talk to the owner of the team. And then ultimately, you kind of make a community decision. This isn't, I'm Bill Belichick. I don't give a damn what anybody says. This is what we're doing. No, Nick Sirianni, I thought, handled this situation very well, including yesterday when he came out and he said that we are going to rest the starters. So let's go through a couple of people spoke, and then we'll talk about it. So here is Nick Sirianni. Do we have this, Tyler, courtesy of Howard Eskin? You do not have this? That's okay. Don't even worry about it. Nick Sirianni came out yesterday and said that we're resting the starters. And again, honestly, I wasn't surprised at all. I would have been shocked. And I said this from Jump Street, the first 5 minutes after the game when they on Monday. Actually, right when the game was over. On Sunday, I said, I would be shocked if they play Saquon Barkley. Shocked. And they didn't. But also, it doesn't mean that Saquon Barkley shouldn't want to go for the record. Totally understand Saquon Barkley. He has a chance to make history, right? You're going out there and you're playing a game. It's a shame the Eagles are as good as they were that they didn't need this game, because we could have actually seen him go for it against his former team and probably get the record. So we have Saquon Barkley. And this is courtesy of Tim McManus on Twitter. Saquon Barkley, Nick Sirianni announces it. He says the starters aren't going to play. Saquon Barkley's asked in a media scrum about it, and here's Saquon talking about it.
He asked me if I want to play, if I want to go for it. I said on Sunday, I probably didn't care too much for it. When I slept on it, it was like an opportunity to put my name in football history. I may never get another opportunity like that again. So I'm down, but at the end of the day, I don't care if I'm putting the team at risk. He's the head coach for a reason. He makes the decisions, and whatever decision he wanted to make, I let him know if he want me to play. I'm going to go out there and make sure I get it. And if I don't, I'm okay with that too.
Yep. There you go. And it was tough to hear. It was terrible audio in the background noise there. I am so impressed with Saquon Barkley's professionalism, how he handled this situation, which was, like his family probably wanted it more than him. And initially he thought it's not that big of a deal. And then he slept on it and he thought you know what, this is something big and I'd like to go for it. And then when Nick Sirianni and the organization made the decision, then he said it's Nick's decision and he understands it. Saquon, from that drop pass to everything that's happened with him this year, he has been an absolute positive pro. And forget about the fact that he's run for 2,005 yards, 13 touchdowns, nearly 6 yards per carry. You put that with 33 receptions, 278 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley we're literally watching one of the greatest seasons of any individual Eagles player. In his first year free agent signing, it's been amazing. So Saquon says that, totally understand that. And we don't need Howard. It's okay. We don't need the Howard cut, Tyler. So Lane Johnson, I thought it was interesting that Lane Johnson, after the game, because Jordan Mailata's saying that, he's gonna tell Nick Sirianni they should go for the record or whatever. Lane Johnson, who is a pro and has been through this many times, right away said, nah, we don't need to go for this. Lane Johnson, this is on Alicia Roberts from CBS 3, her Instagram. Here's Lane Johnson after it was announced yesterday, discussing it.
It wasn't our decision. It's really upstairs. So, we're ready to play if we had to. And if we didn't, we'll sit. So.
Did the coaches get your input since Sunday about that decision?
Yeah, obviously everybody would like to have the record, but you would also like to have the player for the playoff game and win a playoff game with him. So you can get greedy if you want to. This league will quickly humble you and put you back in place.
All right. Well, there's Lane. Again, I said last week I wasn't trying to be dismissive of let's go for it, Saquon Barkley, let's go for it. I just never, ever thought that the Eagles were going to allow that. Could you imagine Nick Sirianni coming out and saying, well, listen, the game means nothing, and we're already locked into that number 2 spot, and Jalen Hurts isn't going to play in the game. More on him coming up in a second. Jalen Hurts isn't going to play in the game, but yeah, we're gonna go out, and in the final game of the season, even though we haven't had a rest since the bye week of Week 5, we're going to go out and we're going to play our starters because we want Saquon Barkley. We want to give him the chance to break the NFL rushing record. Do you imagine him coming out and saying that? Give me a break. God forbid he pulls a hamstring, he pulls a calf. I'm not even talking about a major injury here. He gets hit and he has a concussion like Jalen Hurts. Do you imagine that happening? Lane Johnson gets rolled up on. Jordan Mailata gets rolled up on. Any Eagles starter, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, the soft tissue injury. The Eagles have set themselves up to make a run at the Super Bowl. They're good enough to do it. If Detroit ends up stumbling or Minnesota ends up stumbling, they could have an NFC Championship game here at Lincoln Financial Field. They still have to win games first to do that. But in no universe were the Eagles playing their starters this week. And I didn't waver off of that, and they absolutely positively made the right decision. The organization handled it great. Nick Sirianni handled it very well. Saquon Barkley, the professional that he is, he handled it very well. So this is something that is the right move because the ultimate goal is to win the Super Bowl. They got Saquon Barkley the 2,000 yards. They gave him 31 carries. It was pretty clear Nick Sirianni was important to him and to the team to get Saquon the 2,000 yards, which is an incredible achievement. And he did it in 16 games. It's not like he needed that 17th game to do it. So congratulations to the Eagles for making the right decision. Congratulations to Saquon Barkley. What a freaking year for this guy. All right, one more thing here, and then we'll get to the headlines with Tyler. Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol. For all do they play Saquon Barkley? Do they not play Saquon Barkley? Do you go for the record? Do you not go for the record? It's similar to the Juan Soto conversation, where the conversation should have been, should they sign Juan Soto? Not will they, because the Phillies were never signing Juan Soto. Should they? Saquon Barkley, probably a better chance he would play than the Phillies signing Juan Soto, but you know what I mean. It's more of a fun conversation of should they start him, should they play him, or should they not play him? But really, Jalen Hurts being still in concussion protocol nearly 2 weeks after suffering the injury. Not that I think that he's not going to play in the playoff game, and really he's got an exit protocol based on his concussion symptoms and how he is, so he doesn't control that. But I'm expecting him to play in the first round in the wild card game, but we don't really know that he's still in concussion protocol. So I'm not sounding alarms or anything like that. I'm not doing the, oh my God, we're doomed. He's still injured. This certainly isn't a good thing that Jalen Hurts. I mean, they're going to play a game in a week and 2 days or a week and 3 days. They could play on Saturday of wild card weekend. It certainly isn't a good thing that Jalen Hurts isn't out of concussion protocol just yet. So just something to keep in mind. He tried to give the ref the thumbs up, like, no, I'm cool. And it's like, no, man, you're not. But you never know with concussions. Some guys miss a week. Other guys miss 2 weeks, right? Like I remember Zach Berman being on the show and me saying to him, like, well, I'd rather be safe than sorry and just give him the extra week. And Zach was, and I've heard this a couple times now from reporters, it's like, no. When you're cleared to play, you're cleared to play. It's like, right, but that doesn't mean that they have to play. So technically, could they play? Sure. But better safe than sorry, you hold him out. So he hasn't cleared protocol. He probably, most likely, if they needed this game this weekend, I don't know if he would have been able to play if they would have lost last week. So just something to keep in mind. Not ideal that your quarterback, and really the key to your offense, is still in protocol some 11 days after the injury happened. Not great. Not exactly how you drew it up before you started that game against Washington, where it felt like it was smooth sailing into the playoffs. And now Jalen Hurts isn't going to have played for a couple of weeks, and you hope that there's not any rust or anything like that. But I worry about the head injury. Now, how does he look that first week in the wild card round? All right, well, that's the Eagle story. We'll get more back into it coming up in a little bit. But, man, there was a lot that happened since we last met, especially yesterday in the college football playoff. The 76ers played last night. For all of that, let's get to headlines with Tyler Zulli. Tyler, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. And that's the last time we're saying it to each other, at least until 2026. Yes, let's get to our headlines. And, of course, they're brought to us by our friends over at Glad Hair Restoration, because if you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, head on over to gladhairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started. John, you bring up college football. And there were 3 games yesterday. So I think for the context of the conversation that we're about to have, the first thing I think we should say.
2 games yesterday, right?
2 games yesterday, excuse me, 3 games in total over the last 2. I think for the context for the conversation that we're about to have, I think the first thing we should say is, obviously our thoughts to the victims of the tragedy in New Orleans. Just a terrible act. And I think that you and I share the sentiment of we're thinking about their families and thinking about their loved ones. So because of the conversation, especially because of the conversation of the college football games that we're about to have, I think we have to start there and say, thoughts and prayers to those people affected by a really senseless, horrible act.
Yeah, 15 people now have died. One former Princeton football player I had read last night. Yeah, it's a shame. So I guess they were trying to get ready for the Super Bowl, which is obviously coming up here next month. And so they have these electronic barricades that go up and down, and they were being serviced or fixed. So they weren't out there. So they were trying to use police cars and other things. And this maniac that drove into the crowd, I guess, was able to maneuver around the barricades that they had put up. So it's just, man, this world is crazy. Terrible. That's all I have to say. This world's crazy. So that game's going to be at 4:00 today, I believe. The
Correct.
Sugar Bowl
so the Sugar Bowl was postponed and will be played today at 4:00. But I think we have to start there is to
Absolutely.
say our condolences to the family and friends of those that were impacted by this terrible night.
Yeah, it was. It's something else. But we did get. Listen, we got one really good game in college and one blowout. But
all right, yes. So let's get to those games. Well, actually, we'll start on New Year's Eve. Penn State beats Boise State 31-14. It was a weird game, honestly, because Penn State looked like they were going to blow the doors off of Boise State in the first two drives. I mean, effortless. And Boise State missed a field goal on their opening drive, but Penn State went right down the field on them back-to-back drives. It was 14-0 in the blink of an eye. Boise State battled back. At one point, it was 17-7. Right, it was actually 14-7 right before the half. Ryan Barker kicks a field goal to make it 17-7. Penn State ends up running away with this one a little bit. Maddox Madsen throws 3 interceptions, but Penn State wins this one 31-14 over Boise State.
Yeah, it was. They made it. They made it competitive there at the end, but no surprise in the game. Penn State clearly the better team, and now they reach the semis, and it's a matter of who wins the Sugar Bowl tonight. And I'll tell you what, Georgia or Notre Dame, Georgia hasn't been great this year, and they have a backup quarterback, a younger quarterback that's going to be playing if they do beat Notre Dame. Could Penn State be in the championship game?
We were talking about it yesterday, a bunch of buddies and I. Now, take it for what it is. We are all Penn State alum. So you
got your hoodie on today, your Penn State hoodie on.
Of course I do. I had to show up a little bit. But, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that Penn State would have a chance to play for the national title, I'd have told you were crazy. There's no doubt about it. No team benefited more from the 12-team playoff expansion than Penn State because they were either 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th, like 6 out of the last 10 years since the college football playoff expanded to 4 teams. So no team benefited from it more, but I did not think that they would have this opportunity, and an opportunity that's in front of them that realistically, they could beat either of those teams. I think if it's Notre Dame, I don't think they beat Notre Dame, but they could. You know what I mean? And 3 weeks ago, I'd have said, there's no way. They're going to end up drawing Ohio State or Oregon. All of a sudden, it looks really good for them.
Listen, sometimes you need to be a little bit lucky in your matchups, right? It's just not that you're the best team and you march through and you crush everybody. Sometimes you need to get a little bit lucky, and a team that's probably would have beaten you because of a matchup against another team, they lose. And you're never going to apologize for that. So listen, and they've had good wins here in these last 2 games here as well. So I'm hoping for Notre Dame. I'm hoping for the Battle of Northeast Philadelphia. Stay away from Northeast Philadelphia if this happens.
So let's move on to the Peach Bowl. Texas ends up winning in double overtime. John, I was sitting watching this game with my buddies, and I said this to you before the show started. It was like a really super boring 45 minutes of football. Early punt return touchdown, 14-3 at the end of the first, 17-3 at the end of the second. Felt like Texas was just in total control of this one. It was even 17-8 at the end of the third, and Arizona State really wasn't mounting anything. Cam Scadaboo was throwing up everywhere on the sideline. And then all of a sudden, the Sun Devils came to life. They tie the game up. They end up forcing overtime. They score first in the overtime period. They've got Texas to a 4th and 13. And Texas ends up scoring a touchdown. They score on the next play of the second overtime, get the 2-point conversion, and then Arizona State Levitt throws an interception on 3rd down, and Texas advances 39-31. What was a pretty dreadful game through the first 3 quarters ended up being an amazing football game.
Yeah, it made it an instant classic at the end. 2 thoughts on the game. I thought early when they had a 3rd and goal and they called a timeout because they had Scadabo that was going to run out of the Wildcat. They called a timeout, and then they came back with 2 terrible play calls, and they ended up getting nothing. I got up and I'm like, well, that's the game. They're not going to win the game right there. And credit to them, not only did they come back, they had the ball with a chance to get a field goal. They had the ball. There was 90 seconds left in the game. There was a 3rd down play. The wide receiver, it was clearly helmet to helmet. Should have been called a penalty. But it wouldn't have been it would have given them a 1st down, but they wouldn't have gotten the 1st down without the penalty. So I'm not going to cry about it. And they ended up having the punt, and they went to overtime. But give Arizona State a lot of credit. Man, this has been one hell of a season for him. That's Scadabo. Does anybody like saying the word Scadabo more than Joe Tessitore?
Oh, my goodness.
He must have said it 10,000 times. Scadabo, 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 Scadabo. It's a fun name. He is good.
So he was the leading rusher for Arizona State. No surprise. He has been all year. 30 touches for 143 yards and 2 scores. He was also their leading receiver with 8 for 99. And he threw a 42-yard touchdown on a halfback option pass. So, I mean, you want to talk about a do-it-all running back for a team, a do-it-all player for a team. I think Cam Scadaboo encompasses that maybe more than anybody.
They had a great fake punt in the first half as well, Arizona. they went for it, man. They realized, like, if we're going to win this game, we're going to have everything. Yeah, we're going to have trick plays that work and everything else.
Yeah.
Fell just short.
Well,
unbelievable.
And then the final game yesterday was the game that I think we all thought was going to be the best game of the weekend. Ended up being a blowout. Now, Oregon ends up scoring 21 points, but it was 34-0 in the blink of an eye in this one. And Oregon scores a touchdown and a 2-point conversion at the very end of the half to make it 34-8. And, Ohio State only scores once in the second half, but they win this one 41-21 and win the Rose Bowl in really convincing fashion. Travion Henderson, 94 yards and 2 scores. Quinshon Judkins, 85 yards. Will Howard was excellent in this one, 319 and 3 scores. And is there a better receiver in college football right now than Jeremiah Smith?
No.
I'm not sure there is.
No. Well, and the great thing, Scatabo actually did the same thing. Scatabo before the game was talking about how he's the best runner and he's the best running back in college football, and that's how they're going to win the game. And Jeremiah Smith was saying the same thing. He's like, they better cover me with 2 people. They should have covered me with 3 people. And like you said, the second half they weren't even really trying. The first half they could have scored 80 points on Oregon if they really wanted to. They were rolling them. Man, Jeremiah Smith is the next great wide receiver. The kid from Alabama as well.
Ryan Williams.
Yeah, he's unbelievable too. So
both young guys too, both freshmen.
Man, yeah, they're not draft eligible for a couple years.
All right, so let's go local. We'll talk about the Sixers for just a second because I don't think anybody really wants to. The Sixers lose last night to the Kings, 113-107. And if you'd have said to me on the onset the Sixers were going to lose to the Kings yesterday without Joel Embiid, with a shortened bench yesterday, I would have said, okay, no worries. But the way that they lost yesterday was more problematic. The Kings go on a 15-0 run to end the game. The Sixers were up 9 with about 3 minutes to play and did not score the rest of the way. Sixers lose this one by 6, but also not only just the collapse in the fourth quarter. This one, Derek Bodner tweeted this out. De'Aaron Fox hit a 3 at the buzzer to tie the score at 57 heading into the break. He says a complete disaster at the end of the half for the Sixers, who led by 14 with 6 minutes left in the second. They blew multiple double-digit leads, once in the second and once in the fourth. Sixers really, really did not deserve to win that game last night.
They did not, and it's the second game since they fired Mike Brown, the Kings. Doug Christie now 2-0 as the Kings head coach. So, honestly. Like you had said that you came in and you're like, yeah, the Sixers, they lost the 15-0 run for the Kings. And I'm like, yeah, that was the first time I thought about the Sixers playing on New Year's Day. If there's a time to sit Joel Embiid and to lose a game to an inferior team, it's probably.
Yeah, probably on New Year's Day when people are celebrating and it's a West Coast game and people are watching college football and getting ready for work again. I'll be honest with you. I watched all college football. I watched a handful of Sixers minutes. I caught up on the game this morning because I was almost just gassed at that point.
Yeah, I watched 0 Sixers minutes. So there you go.
Tonight, one more newsworthy piece of conversation. Flyers back at it. The West Coast portion of the road trip wraps up tonight with the juggernaut that is the Vegas Golden Knights. They are 25-9-3 on the season, John. The Flyers 17-17-4 on the season. The Vegas Golden Knights with the the second most points in the NHL behind just the Winnipeg Jets, but they've also played 2 less games than the Jets. They've 53 points in only 37 games played. Pretty darn good team the Flyers are going to play tonight.
All right, well, there you go. Thank you, Tyler. All right, coming up, more Eagles conversation. And how fun would it be for the Eagles to lose and for the Giants to win? More on that. Also, I was not watching the Sixers last night. I was so gassed from watching the Mummers parade all day. We'll discuss the Mummers right after this. Philly with Jon Marks. Don't you go anywhere. All right. I just mentioned the Eagles and the Giants. How about this? Eagles 2.5-point favorites. All right. We like to say that we like to give you some locks so you can you get some free money. Take the Giants plus 2.5 and buy it now because I think this number is going to come down a little bit. Buy it now. Get to 2.5 points. If you watched the Giants play last week, man, they were like hardos. They were playing hard. Drew Lock saying, hey, I'm trying to get a job for next year. I want to be the Giants starting quarterback. They win this game, he may be the Giants starting quarterback next year. More on that coming up in a second. But that's right now live at the BetParx app. The Eagles are 2.5-point favorites. But listen, once you're done with all the odds and everything else that's going on, how about Parx Casino? my casino of choice, close to everywhere in the area. Pennsylvania's #1 casino, and they have something called the Excite Center, which is an amazing venue for concerts, for comedy, and more. Larry the Cable Guy, May 16th. Comedian Ron White, March 20th. Country artist Cole Swindell, February 7th. The reggae sounds of Shaggy, that's coming up here in just over 2 weeks. I'll be there for that, maybe. Jerry Cantrell, Alice in Chains, February 8th. Magician Michael Carbonaro. So, again, music, comedy, other acts. Lee Brice, country star, coming up on March 22nd. And whether you're looking for dinner before the show or just you're looking like, you know what, let's go out, let's get something, get a bite to eat. They have amazing options for you at Parks Casino. The Liberty Bell Gastropub, amazing burgers, sandwiches, wings, appetizers. The Parks Grill Steakhouse, high-end steakhouse, amazing cuts of meat, amazing seafood. Bamboo Noodle House. ParksCasino.com. Buy tickets for all their shows. Parks Casino, this is how you win. You must be 21. Gambling problem. Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, I was talking about this last week. It was actually, I don't even know how many years ago it was now, but I had made one of these New Year's resolutions. My shoulder was messed up. So much so, I was to get cereal out of the top of my pantry. I couldn't, not that I'm tall, but I couldn't get I was like this. I'd get the tongs to get it. And so I waited for so long. I was hoping it would get better on its own. It doesn't get better on its own. So finally I went to Rothman Orthopedics, and literally within seeing the doctor, having an examination, they're like, yep, here's what you have. Frozen shoulder. Got PT right there at Rothman. And within 6 weeks, totally back to normal. And I'm telling you, I spent a year in pain, and it was getting worse, not being able to do just basic things. So if you're out there and it's your back or your hands or your joints or your knee, whatever it is, Rothman Orthopedics, specialized care, it's been their passion for over 50 years. High quality, compassionate, affordable care, rooted in research. So if you have an achy back, knee, and let's say you used to be active, and you're like, I can't do that anymore. You used to like to run. Maybe it's gardening, just everyday life, and you're living in pain. Trust me, you don't have to do that. Rothman Orthopedics, their physicians are not only specialized in orthopedics and clinical research, they're fellowship trained to treat specific areas of the body. So they have a knee guy, a shoulder guy, a hand guy. They have specialists. So you're not just dealing with somebody that's like, yeah, I'll do an ACL surgery on you. No, you go to their knee guy, right? Rothman proudly serves dozens of communities across Pennsylvania and New Jersey with 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers. I've been to the Rothman Urgent Care. Amazing. So if you have something goes wrong with you, you're not just going to regular urgent care. Rothman has urgent cares as well. And it's a full spectrum of orthopedic care. Rothman Orthopedics, x-rays, bracing, MRIs, physical therapy, and more. Year after year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volumes of hip, knee, shoulders, ankle replacements in the country, over 60,000. So, Rothman Orthopedics, specialize in orthopedics, and you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and to make an appointment today. rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and to make an appointment today. There you go. I've actually been twice. I've had to go to Rothman. I was, and this is probably 20 years ago now, but I was just like having a catch with my buddies, and a ball was thrown behind me, a football catch. A ball was thrown behind me, and I went to try to knock the ball down so it wasn't intercepted, and boom, right on the PIP joint, I broke and dislocated the finger on my left hand, and I put the popsicle stick on it, and I was like, oh well, they don't do anything for broken fingers. And I remember I went to work, and this girl that I worked with was like, no, you should go to the emergency room right now. What are you doing? So I actually ended up going to the primary care doctor, and they sent me to Rothman, and I actually had to have a cast. And then they had this like popsicle stick thing that like straightened I don't have a baldy finger, but it's very crooked. So there you go. All right. Well, so I don't know what your tradition is on New Year's Day, Tyler Zuley, but I very much am locked into the Mummers Parade, especially early. And then once you get going, And now, like 1 o'clock, I was waiting for the games to start yesterday. But once you get going, then you kind of get away with it. Because honestly, if the Mummers Parade, the more skilled competitors are on later on in the day. The string bands and the more elaborate costumes and really the more skilled performers of the Mummers Parade. I never really watched the Mummers growing up. It wasn't until I met my wife and I would go over her parents' house, my in-laws' house, for New Year's Day, and I would go over there and they would just have the Mummers Parade on. And you don't control your remote, so you're kind of just sitting there for a couple hours because you got to be there for a couple hours, and you start watching the Mummers Parade. Now I put it on because my kids get a kick out of it. So and early in the day is when they have the comics, I guess, the comics section, which is like, they're not doing elaborate dances out there or whatever. They're really just coming out and going like this with their umbrellas and everything else. So yes, I was glued to the Mummers Parade earlier, and they do it. Larry Menti, Dawn Stensland, my buddy Dave Grzybowski is the executive producer on it. It's on MeTV now. I don't know if you knew that, Tyler Zulli. It's not on like Channel 6 or Channel 17.
I'm not going to lie to you.
I actually have it because I just talking to my remote, and I said the Mummers Parade, and it was on Channel 69 in Lehigh Valley. So that's why I was watching it through that. But yes, I watched the Mummers Parade. I'm laughing with them, not at them, when I watch the parade. Tyler, are you a Mummers? Are you a fan of the Mummers? Are you into the?
I'm not. I mean, I'm not a big parade guy in general. I was saying to you before the show, like I think parades when they're tailored for kids, right? I was saying, gave you the example of if you go to a Disney World, for example, right, and you see the Mickey and Minnie floats and the Prince and the Princesses and the whatever, like all the characters, right? That's great because your kids get excited. They get to see their favorite, movie characters on the parade and whatnot. And I guess that the same could be said for a regular parade too. If the kids enjoy it, then that's cool. They're not for me. The thing is though, like I often say this about, I say this about mascots too. Like mascots are not for me, but I get why they're there. So I am not a parade guy. I really don't like watching or attending parades, but I also understand why parades exist. They're, either they're steeped in tradition.
Yes,
or
the Mummers are tradition.
Or they're meant for kids or whatever the case may be. Like I'm sure in the coming years, I'm going to be taking my son to a parade somewhere, right? Like I'm sure you've done it with your kids as well. You've done
we did local
of a parade,
parades,
right?
Yes.
It is what it is. Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you I love it, but they're not for me. So, but no, I am not a Mummers guy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I saw, what was it? I think Crossing Broad put out a video and said, "Explain the Mummers Parade to somebody who's not from Philadelphia." And Jason Kelsey with the Mummers costume at the parade, at the Eagles parade was interesting. So now I think more people know about the Mummers because of Jason Kelsey outside of Philadelphia than they would have. The Thanksgiving Day parade, and this year it was pouring rain and it was miserable, so it wasn't a fun watch. But the Thanksgiving parade is so bad it's good, and the Mummers is kind of similar to it. It's not bad. But the Thanksgiving, I mean, they're literally lip syncing on like the steps of the art museum. You have some, like the 60-year-old people that are performing that were famous in 1984, and they're lip syncing some song. But I mean, it's fun. It's fun to watch, and the kids like it as well. All right, so last week when the Giants won, it was such a great week. The Eagles crushed the Cowboys, right? And they clinched the NFC East. And all right, they're not going to be the number 1 seed, but whatever. You're locked in the number 2 seed. Life's good. Saquon Barkley got 2,000 yards. This is awesome. And then the Giants. Oh, man, they're coming back. They're going back and forth with the Colts. Drew Lock's diving for a touchdown. Oh, Giants fans are clapping at MetLife Stadium. The Giants get the win over the Colts. They eliminate them from the playoffs, and they cost themselves the number 1 pick in the draft. Now, it would be very difficult, even if the Giants lose this week, to regain that number 1 pick because of strength of schedule. The other teams that are ahead of them would need to win, all of them. So like the Patriots are going up against the Bills. The Bills aren't playing their starters, I don't think, this week. But still, I can't imagine the Patriots want to lose that number 1 pick. Tennessee, Cleveland, and then the Giants. But if the Giants were to win this week, and I'm going to put it out there right now, I think the Giants are winning this week because of how hard they played last week. They had some young players, Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy, is it Waylon Robinson, their other young wide receiver who's very good?
Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good too. Like, he's a good slot receiver. And Drew Lock's like playing with his hair on fire. He's balls to the walls trying to win these games. And honestly, even the Eagles' backups, I like Tanner McKee. What's he going to look like when they have a Giants team that's out there like sending blitzes at him and he's throwing the ball to who are the Eagles' backup wide receivers, right?
It'll be
Dotson.
Johnny Wilson. Jahan Dotson and Johnny Wilson will probably start the game.
Are you putting Calcaterra out there? I mean, I guess you almost have to.
You kind of have to. Somebody's got to play, right? Because CJ Uzomah just went on the IR. So,
and by the way, Dallas Goedert looks like he's going to be good for the playoffs, which is an excellent thing to see. So, like, I can't imagine the Giants. Well, I can't imagine it, but like, I would, if I was a betting man, I'd bet significant money on the Giants winning this game. So, if the Giants were to win, that gives them 4 wins. If you look at Jacksonville, Carolina, the Jets, and the Bears, they're not likely to win. The Bears had the Packers. They're not winning that game unless it's one of these division games where it's like, wow, how did they win that game? The Jets aren't beating the Dolphins. The Dolphins are still in playoff, fighting for the playoffs. Carolina's, are they beating the Falcons? I know the Falcons suck, but they're still playing for the playoffs. The Jags and the Colts, so the Giants, and we were trying to figure this out before we came on the air. The Giants right now have the second easiest strength of schedule, at least for how I think it works. I think if the Giants were to win this game, they could go all the way down to 8th. Do you imagine going from having the number 1 pick, all you have to do is lose, to now being the 8th pick? Forget about if you think one of these quarterbacks is worth it or not. Still, you're getting a top edge rusher if you don't like a quarterback. You're getting a top offensive lineman. You're getting the top offensive lineman. You're getting the top edge rusher. The Penn State edge rusher is thought to be maybe one of the top 3 picks in the draft.
You're getting Travis Hunter, right?
And you're getting, right, he's the top pick, yes.
Like, so you have, if you're not looking for a quarterback, you have a plethora of options to choose from. It's a pretty good tackle class. I wouldn't say it's a great tackle class. I would say it's pretty good. The edge rush position is unbelievable. Whether you feel like you love Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward or not, there's 2 quarterbacks that are going to be taken early. You could theoretically cost yourself a legit bona fide star type of player because you beat the Colts in week 16 or week 17.
The difference between 3 and 8 could be a Hall of Fame player and a good player.
Well, and I will say this, for this piece of conversation, the funniness surrounding like this game doesn't matter for the Eagles and it could theoretically mean everything for the Giants. There are a lot of games this week that mean something for playoff positioning. There are 11 games that host playoff positional battles. So every game in the AFC North, so obviously the Ravens and Steelers don't play each other, but both of those games matter. Plus the Bengals have an outside chance to still make the playoffs. The Falcons to try to win the NFC North, or excuse me, the NFC South. The Commanders for their playoff spot. The Packers for their playoff spot. The Bucks to try to win the South. The Broncos for their playoff spot. The Rams and the Seahawks. The Chargers for their playoff spot. The Dolphins with an outside playoff spot. And then the big one, the juggernaut slugfest at the end of Sunday night is the Vikings and the Lions for the NFC North and the bye in the first round. There's like 3 games that mean nothing for playoffs. I guess it's 5. It's 5 games that mean nothing for playoffs, and the Eagles just so happen to be playing in one of them. But inversely, it means a lot for the Giants' draft pick compensation, where if they win this game, as you were just talking about, they're going to fall. They could fall significantly.
Yeah, the Raiders have 4 wins. They're playing the Chargers. The Chargers are still battling for playoff position. So I don't expect the Raiders to win that one. Yeah, like the Bears against the Packers, Jets against the Dolphins. By the way, sayonara to Aaron Rodgers. God, what a terrible ending for him.
Terrible this year.
Terrible
that
ending.
Team was terrible.
And he realizes he's done. And that's kind of how he's talking right now. I don't know who would be interested in him. Yeah, so I mean, reading it the way I'm reading it, and I could be wrong, if none of these teams win, and the Giants win, could they be 9th?
I know they can fall at least to 8th. I don't know about 9th, but I know it's possible.
Because New Orleans is the only one that it looks like they would have, if they finish with the same record, that would have the tiebreaker over them.
So Jordan Renan tweeted this the other day, said the Giants players don't want to hear about the win hurting their draft position. Of
course not.
Like Wan'Dale Robinson said, that's not talked about with us. Guys are out there trying to play for their livelihoods. This is their job. A lot of the guys, they might not be on this team next year. And he's right? Like we talked about that last week. Guys are playing for future contracts. And
yeah,
so
they don't care. They don't care about this crap.
I can't begrudge them, right? Drew Lock's looking to become a starter again in the league at some fuller capacity. Some of these guys are he's right. Some of them are going to play for their jobs, but I think it's objectively hilarious that they played, like Walking Dead football for 10 weeks and then decided when they had their grasp on the number 1 pick, we're going to go slaughter the Colts in a meaningless game for them.
It's awesome. I can't get enough of this. All right, we'll talk more about that coming up here as Philly with Jon Marks. Chuck Wooler used to say back in 2-2. We really are back in 2-2. So don't go anywhere. Philly with Jon Marks. Let's do it. All right. Glad Hair Restoration was actually talking to a family member over the holidays who has, he takes the vitamin supplementation, which is something that Glad Hair Restoration, it's one of the things depending on what stage of hair loss you're in. Vitamin supplementation is a very popular, something that people turn to, very popular, because it really does reduce the shedding and the balding. So if you're like, all right, like I'm not exactly happy with my hair, I don't want to lose any more, the vitamin supplementation is amazing. Non-invasive TED treatments, which I get every year. PRP and stem cell restoration. You know what PRP is? Stem cell restoration. It's where they take your blood and they spin it in that machine. It's used for knees and everything else because it has that rich plasma that regenerates, right? So, and then they right in your scalp, and man, the results are amazing. And then hair restoration surgery, which I've obviously had with Glad Hair, but they really are who you should trust. And I've said this before about Glad Hair. They're not going to just try to sell you on hair restoration when you call them at 610-980-4000. They're trusted. They're the number 1 hair restoration and hair office in the country. Each patient is getting a one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. And they're advocating for you. They're not going to just say, oh, yeah, how you doing, Mr. Johnson? Oh, yeah, you need hair restoration. No, sometimes that's not what's best for you. Sometimes, why don't you wait a couple years, see where your hair loss goes. Let's try these treatments to see if we can delay it or stop the thinning and balding. Or as for me, I was a perfect candidate for hair restoration. Glad Hair is not just about restoration. It's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really dramatically can change your life and change your hair. Give them a call. Their hair team is standing by right now. It's 610-980-4000, 610-980-4000, or glathairmctr.com. Glat, G-L-A-T, hairmctr.com. You can see my before and after pictures and a lot more right there on the website. Central City Toyota. Uncle Jamie and his college football locks of the week. We believe he made selections on all 4 college games. We believe that he's either 2-1 or 3-0. He was 4-0 last week in his picks. He's got at least 2. He might be 7-0 in his picks. At the very least, he's 6-1. So that's why you want to go to Central City Toyota, because my Uncle Jamie, the general manager, is amazing at college football picks. He's an expert. But that's not the only reason you want to go there. It's because 55 years on Chestnut Street in the heart of University City. How do you stay in business for 55 years? You think crappy businesses, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a car dealership, whether it's whatever, do they stay in business for that long? Of course not. It's a rhetorical question. Of course not. Central City Toyota. If you're in the market for a new car, it's got a ton of inventory right now on the market. You can see everything at centralcitytoyota.com. Everything. And their sister dealership, Ardmore Toyota, same thing. New, pre-owned, certified Toyotas. If you're on a budget, maybe you want to get a car for your kid, You're like, oh, you don't want to spend 20 grand on a car. They have cars under $10,000, an amazing selection. Again, centralcitytoyota.com. And as far as parts and service, if you need to get your car serviced, whether or not you live in Center City or not, this is what I do. Drop the car off, get it serviced, boom, take the shuttle, and then you can come back, boom, and your car is done. Or by an appointment basis only, centralcitytoyota.com, they'll come and pick up your car, service it, bring it back to you. It's like you didn't even know what happened, except your car's serviced. centralcitytoyota.com. Actually, what I like to do is after I'm done here on the air, I like to go up and I'm like, let me drop off the car. Let me put my AirPods in and let me do some work. Uninterrupted, like 45 minutes to an hour later, they're there standing with me. Mr. Marks, your car's ready. centralcitytoyota.com. Go see my Uncle Jamie, the heart of your University City, centralcitytoyota.com. Ooh-ah. All right, we're back. So it is, just for everybody out there, it's Happy New Year. It's not Happy New Year's. All right? Right? Can we agree on that? It's Happy New Year. It's
correct.
Like,
the New Year's comes from New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. It is the possessive of the day or the eve. If you say Happy New Year, it's one singular New Year.
It's Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year's is not it. It's like when someone says underwears. Give me some underwears.
You know what? If we're diving down this rabbit hole, you know what one drives me nuts is the I could care less versus I couldn't care less.
I couldn't care less.
If you could
proper.
care less, you care, or you have more care, less cares to give.
No,
if you couldn't care less, you have no cares to give.
You literally couldn't care less. If you could,
that one drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, I am I'm conscious of that, and I do use couldn't care less because if you could care less, you could care less.
And the only other one is apparently people have taken in droves to spell the word lose, L-O-O-S-E, which is loose. Which is not the word lose. There's one O in lose.
Yeah,
those two have grinded my gears for a while.
That is a common. That was a common mistake. What did you do on New Year's Eve, Tyler Zuli? Anything fun?
No, I watched. Well, yes, it was great. I spent the time with my wife and son, but we didn't
Penn
go.
State?
We didn't do anything. We sat and watched the Penn State game. They were probably asleep. My son was probably asleep by halftime. My wife was asleep by the end of the third quarter. I shut the TV off as soon as the game was over and went to bed. None of us made it to midnight. It was great.
See, I go over my and by the way, my dad's birthday is on New Year's Eve.
Okay.
So we typically see him on New Year's Day, but so like we will go over my we go over my in-laws, and I'm over there again on New Year's Day because my brother-in-law who lives in Vegas and his son and his wife, they come into town over Christmas, so we go over and we hang out with them, then we have dinner and stuff. But so we're over there. We get home. The kids, it's like now they got to get a bath, got to get in bed. So it's like 9 o'clock. They're in bed, and like if I'm still awake by 9:30, it's crazy. So I was up trying to watch the end of the Penn State game. Fell asleep, but we set the alarms for 11:50. Why? I don't know, because it's not like I'm getting a big smooch. Right, I get like a decent smooch, but I'm not getting anything crazy at midnight when the ball drops. But we set it so like 11:50. We set the alarms. We put on Ryan Seacrest, and we watched the last 10 minutes of it. But this year, my kids, my 9-year-old, my 7-year-old said, "Daddy, wake me up." I'm like, all right, like, do I really want to wake them up? And then they can't go back to sleep or whatever. So I'm like, all right, I promise I'll wake you up. So I go in. And I give like a 60% effort. Honey, wake up. Come on, it's 11:50. Wake up. And they're like dead asleep. So then I go in the other room. Honey, wake up. It's 11:52. All right, I go back to my wife. Yeah, they're not waking up. And she's like, they're going to be mad if you don't wake them up. And I'm like, so you want me to go in there and turn the light on and shake them? And she's like, well, I don't know if you want to do all that. So I'm like, all right, go in. And I do the hard shake. And still no wake up. And then I go into the other hard shake, and she gets up. Like, all right, well, now I can't not wake up the other one. So I go in, and I have to put the light on. So they get up, 11:57, they're in bed with us. The ball drops. They're like, okay, 12:05. Now they're back in their own bed, and the fireworks are going off. So I don't know about you, Tyler, and you live in an apartment. You live in an apartment still.
Yeah.
But in my neighborhood, there's a couple fireworks guys. Any opportunity,
Any celebration,
any opportunity to light fireworks off, dude. I'm talking about July 1st, July 2nd, July 3rd, July 4th, July 5th, July 6th. Fireworks are going off.
Yeah, New Year's Eve, 4th of July, Sunday, all the major holidays.
Whenever, yeah, exactly. Sunday, Monday. So now the fireworks going off, and my daughter, who's in the front bedroom, she can hear them loud. Daddy, I can't go. So 12:30. We're surrounded. We have and I know who it is in the front of the house. Somebody in the back of the house. I don't know who it is. And then there's other people that randomly also do it. But consistently, we have one fireworks guy in the front of the house and one fireworks guy in the back of the house. So now it's like 12:40, and I finally got both of them down. So we got it. So they're finally down, and I was able to go back to sleep. Now my 3-year-old didn't get the message that I was up then till 1 o'clock in the morning, and I don't want to get up at 6:07. So I was up normal time on Sunday morning. As I'm sure your son didn't get the memo that.
Yeah, it's crazy. They don't. He doesn't really recognize timestamps and important dates yet. So yeah, we had a regular day, which meant a shortened sleep for all of us.
Yeah. Well, now it's and man, that turnaround. My kids this morning did not want to get up because they go back to school today.
Sure.
Yeah, they're like, they were shocked when I'm like, yeah, you guys go back to school. They're like, what? You've been off since the 20th or whatever it was. They've been off since that Monday. So yeah, you got to go back to school. You can't. Yeah, you get a week for Thanksgiving now. You got to go back to school. So they're back in school this morning. Yeah. So we didn't really do anything outside of that. We do a fake. So at my in-laws, and this is done at like 7:30, we do a fake countdown. So you can go on YouTube and you can find like a 5-minute countdown where they count down the last 10 seconds like it's live.
Yeah.
So we put that up there, and we do a fake countdown like it's actually going to be 12 o'clock.
Oh, that's cool.
We do a toast.
Do it for the kids, and then they can, like you said, then they can go to bed and have a normal night's rest. That's pretty cool.
The kids like it. So there you go. Any leftovers, Tyler? I know that you weren't here on New Year's Eve. Black Gritty was here, and Black Gritty was adamant that Nick Sirianni not only was going to play the starters and Saquon Barkley, that's what he was rooting for them to do. Were you disappointed, or were you surprised that Nick Sirianni elected to sit everybody and not go for the record with Saquon Barkley?
No, I'm not surprised, and frankly, I'm not disappointed. We talked about it a lot, early in the week and last week as well. If he needed 30 yards, you send him out for a handful of touches at the beginning of the day. Because you and I have played this back and forth of you've said for a while you want to throttle down Saquon's workload. And my rebuttal to that was, well, there's still games to be played, and there's still important, meaningful games. They're trying to win the division. They still had a chance at the 1 seed, all of these things. It's why that I would not have, throttled him down maybe a little bit, but not like to a 16 touches versus a 25 touches. Maybe you go to 22, right? Or instead of 25. But once everything was out of play, once the division was locked and they were locked into the 2 seed, to me, it's just about balancing risks. Like, I totally get that you could get, somebody could get injured on the first play of the wild card round and they're out for the game. I understand that is a sentiment amongst a lot of people. And I also know that there's a lot of people that say, if they do this, they better make a deep run in the playoffs, because if it's a forgettable playoff run and Saquon Barkley misses out on the record, people are going to be argumentative there as well. But to me, the larger picture is postseason success. And I don't think this team has postseason success, at least in the capacity that we think that they should, without Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
And so I understand that injuries happen. It's a contact sport. It could happen at any given time or any given play. But I think if you can mitigate that for a week in a game that doesn't mean anything for your standing or for your team, I'm for it. And, in order to get him healthy into the wild card round. The other aspect to it is, too, as you brought up a couple days ago, they had a week 5 bye. They've been playing for 12 straight weeks. That's a really long, grueling set of games with travel and impact, and a guy like him who hasn't shied away from impact, and he's willing to take contact and run through it, and he does have a heavy workload. I'm okay with using this as kind of a pseudo buy for this team.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it actually works out perfectly. Saquon got 2,000 yards, right? That is a huge achievement. It really is. And I know fans want to see it. I can understand Saquon. Like Saquon said, his dad was more disappointed than anybody else. Totally get that. Totally get that. You're not putting your starting team out so you can get a record. Like, here's the thing. You put him out there. If it takes 35 carries for him to get 101 yards, now you're pot committed to him having to get it. Can't put him out there for the first half and he gets 60 yards and then you're like, all right, well, we said we'd give it a half. No, now you're pot committed to have to do it. Can't do it, man. It's too risky. And I firmly believe that no one actually believes this that's in the media that's saying that. I don't believe any of them believe it. You can't be that dumb to believe that the Eagles are going to regret this and it's a bad decision and Saquon's going to be mad and the teammates are going to be mad. Everybody understands that the goal is to win a Super Bowl. Everybody understands that. So I have a feeling because it's a slow week and you're leading into a game that the Eagles don't need for anything. It's an easy way when you have to fill 4 hours or you need engagement on stuff that you put this out there. This is the biggest no-brainer of all time. If you're the Eagles team, like this is more of a fans conversation than anything else, which is fine. I'm totally fine with that. But like give me a break with this. And I'll say this again. I couldn't be more impressed with Saquon Barkley, the dude, the football player, the professional that he's shown to be. I mean, they were burning his jersey up in New York when he went back up there. He handled it like a pro. He didn't talk crap on the Giants organization, but at the same time, he let everybody know like this was a really important game to him. And I'm sure that played into wanting to. Could you imagine him breaking the rushing record against the Giants? It would have been amazing. This dude is the real deal. And when I see loser Giants fans in media, especially media like Sean Marash up there on WFAN in New York, that literally are rooting for him to get injured or to fail, like you don't get it. You totally don't get it. This dude wanted to stay in New York, and you nickel and dimed him. Freaking franchised him, which is fine. Let him walk. But he has been, ladies and gentlemen, we have witnessed one of the great Eagles seasons of all time as a team. And a lot of that is because of Saquon Barkley and his play. So enjoy it. Enjoy this season. Enjoy, hopefully, the Eagles losing to the Giants on Sunday, which would be one of the best things ever. And let's get ready for the playoffs, and let's hope that everybody's healthy. Hopefully Jalen Hurts is ready to go, and the concussion protocol and everything else, man. I mean, I just, pretty amazing season for this team. So that like now you're positioning, and now you're Packers or Commanders, and we'll see what these teams do coming up on Sunday. Because the Commanders, you would think, I mean, you're obviously playing hard because you want to play the Eagles. You want to win the game and avoid it. So shout out to everybody watching on TV, by the way, all PHLY.com if you want to watch the rest of the program. But yeah, so do you have a pick today, Tyler, on the? So I like Notre. I think you said Notre Dame. I like Notre Dame today over Georgia.
Yeah, I do too. And I've been back and forth on this one a lot. And I've seen the line has been small for most of the week. It's, I think, by far been the shortest line, because even Oregon, Ohio State, I think ballooned up to 2.5 at one point in favor of Ohio State. And obviously there was a reason behind that. I think I've seen 1.5. Georgia with a backup quarterback. Notre Dame with the argument of, have you played anybody yet? They've beaten Army. They've beaten Navy. I think Notre Dame is going to win this game. I think their defense has played really, really well. I think they've been coached well past the Northern Illinois loss, because that thing could have spiraled quickly for them. If you lose that game and the next game you come out and you play a little bit flat, like they've done a really nice job since that game of responding and, beating up on the teams that they're supposed to beat up on, and winning the games that, against the better teams that they've played. They've smacked Navy. They smacked Army. They beat Louisville by a touchdown. They beat Georgia Tech, who was a good team this year, by 18. They beat USC in that shootout towards the end, or at the end of the season. They were really, really impressive against Indiana. I think that in this one, if Julian Love can get to the 85, 90, 95-yard rushing threshold in the score, I think Notre Dame can win this game.
I'm picking Notre Dame.
I think I'm leaning that way too.
And actually, I forget, like, because Texas is such a weird team. I didn't know what I believed in that game, but I definitely liked Ohio State. That was a weird line considering they were favorites in the game. You see why. So, well, listen, we get a good game today, which is awesome. Coming at 4 p.m. We'll be back tomorrow. Shout out to everybody. Happy New Year's, yous guys, as Michael Richmond said out there. Good to hear from you there, Michael. Shout out to everybody there, the Mad Chatters that tune in every single morning on YouTube. So follow us and subscribe on YouTube. Smash that subscribe button so you don't have a choice but to watch the show. And to our podcast listeners, our audio-only podcast listeners, we appreciate you. You can always listen to the podcast. So if you don't catch us on YouTube and you say, you know what, I'm in the car, let me put on Philly with Jon Marks and hear what John and Tyler have to say about everything. You can do that at your convenience, wherever you get your podcasts. Philly with Jon Marks. Everybody, we'll be back tomorrow on a Football Friday, as if we care about the game on Sunday. It's still going to be a Football Friday, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.